Right. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee of Telford and Wrekin Council. Welcome to you all. This evening's meeting is held in public to ensure that all those involved or interested in the planning applications and process can see and hear how the decisions are made. It is important that the speakers are able to present their information without interruption, and that the council members of the committee are able to hear and consider the material presented. Please note that the microphones are for the live stream only. Only those people who have been notified are able to speak, and I would ask anyone else to remain quiet, not to interrupt the meeting, and to allow the members to make their decisions. I remind everyone that council meetings can be photographed or recorded, and ask for all participants to recognise the importance of the planning process. And finally, please could I ask that everybody puts their phone on silence or turn their phones off. Okay, thank you. Right. Apologies for absence.
So we've had apologies from Councillor Offland, and Councillor Dunn is substituting for it, and we've had apologies from Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? No? No? Okay. Right.
Following the newspaper article on Friday the 13th, which stated we were expected to approve a planning application tonight, whether we should declare an interest in that.
So, what was the reference to? Sorry, I'm afraid.
It was in reference to the Hem Lane application, and it started off saying councillors are expected to approve.
No, that's just in terms of their version of the recommendation, so that's not
I think for clarity then in future we need to tell the press not to make provocative statements.
Duly accepted. Accepted those comments. Right, thank you. Item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting, which everyone has.
Sorry, can I just say that I'm not down as attending and I was at it.
Oh, right. Okay, so we have that duly corrected.
I'll get that changed.
Okay, thank you. Everyone has seen them. I know I can't comment because I wasn't here, but can I? Neither was Councillor Scott. So those that were here, are they a true record? Okay, everyone okay with that? Thank you. I'll duly sign those accordingly. Right. Item 4, any deferred or withdrawn applications?
There are none, Chair.
Thank you. And item 5, any site visits?
None expected, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, item 6, we go on to the planning applications for determination. So what we'll do now is to go on to 6.1, which is TWC 2022-0972, the land fronting units A1 to A2, Stafford Park 11, Stafford Park, Telford. Okay, can I ask Mark to...
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you.
So the application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 4 industrial units, use classes B2, B8 and EG, with associated parking, bin stores, landscaping. Amended plans have been submitted and circulated, which note the provision of PV panels to the roof of each of the units, and an additional condition is proposed requiring details. The application is being presented to members as a financial contribution towards off-site replacement planting is required via a memorandum of understanding, and the council is the applicant. The site is located on Stafford Park 11, which is a designated strategic employment area. The applicant is proposing uses which align with the requirements of that policy under EC1, and the principle is therefore considered acceptable. The scheme proposes 4 high-quality industrial units constructed of varying mix of materials, and the scale is considered comparable to neighbouring buildings. There are a number of trees located on the site, one being covered by a tree preservation order. This tree is proposed to be retained, however 7 trees will need to be removed in order to facilitate the buildings. Officers have noted that the trees provide a positive addition to the street scene, and in accordance with the Council's adopted tree replacement standards document, officers have calculated a number of replacement trees required to offset the loss of 7 trees. And this is calculated at 20 replacement trees. Following discussions with the applicant, officers have requested that a minimum of 7 semi-mature replacement trees are planted on the site, with full details to be submitted via condition. This will ensure the site continues to provide a soft and positive contribution to the street scene. It is not, however, considered that the site is sufficient to be able to accommodate all 20 replacement trees, and as such, officers have agreed that a mix of on-site and off-site planting would be most appropriate in the current instance. Given that 7 replacement trees are proposed to be planted on site, the applicant has agreed to pay a sum of £10,400 for the remaining 13 replacement trees, which is a contribution of £800 per tree. And as the council is the landowner and the applicant, the contribution will need to be secured via a memorandum of understanding. There have been no technical objections from the council's highways, drainage or ecology teams. In respect of sustainability, the applicant has shown the installation of solar panels on all roofs, and a number of EV charging points have been included on the site, namely 4. Details of these elements are proposed to be secured via condition. There are no residential properties within close proximity to the site which may be affected by the proposal. The loss of trees is considered to be acceptable on balance given the significant employment benefits along with the replacement planting. Accordingly, the proposal is considered to be in accordance with national and local planning policy, and the recommendation remains as per the report to committee and the additional condition in respect of the PV panels. Thank you, Chair.
Can there are no speakers either for or against this evening, so I'll open it directly up to the committee. Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I can be very brief on this one, I think, really. It's industrial units on an industrial estate, so what's not to like, really? I'm very pleased about solar panels on the roof, because most people seem to think they should be on all the roofs on all industrial estates, so that's a really good move, as are the EV points. The off-site trees that were mentioned, we've had a few applications in the last couple of years where trees were going to be planted off-site. There's a huge pot of money for them. Has any been planted yet? And do we know where these off-site trees would go?
I'm not aware of where or if any trees have been planted to date, or however, through kind of the tree replacement standards, it's for the, kind of us, the officers, and yourself as members of the committee, to secure that money again to kind of as required. But I don't know where in this case that money would be
time's
spent.
going by now, and you'd
Sure.
hope you know the council will be able to say we put them there, we put them there, and at the moment we don't know any of them. But overall, the idea here is sound, and I would support it happily. Thank you.
Chair.
No,
Sorry, Chair, can I just come back in terms of the Section 106 points? In terms of monitoring the delivery, our specialists in the council are aware in terms of what pots are available and where to spend, whether it's with regard to trees, whether it's regard to highways or bus infrastructure, etc. Anything that's collected through Section 106 contributions. And that's all monitored through the infrastructure delivery statement. We publish that every year. So there's also a monitoring that's done corporately and required nationally as well. So that's all available online.
Well, that's
So
good.
you can
All
also
right.
see where things are
We
spent.
never get an update. We're told there will be so many trees planted, and we don't know about them. So, if you can point me in the right direction, I will happily look. Thank you.
I'll send that out to committee
yeah.
afterwards.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Luter.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the kind of application that we should be supporting as a council, because as the town grows in population and we look at areas where we can support economic growth, this is the perfect area for industrial units, commercial units to be placed, which will then result in further employment in the borough, and that's something that I think we really should encourage, and we should be supporting applications such as this in these areas. So I think as a council we should really band together and really support these kind of applications.
Yes, councillor.
Do we know how many employees are likely to be taken up on these 4 units?
We don't as yet. As far as I'm aware, we haven't got end users identified for them.
'Cause I suppose the drawings we have in front of us are just indicative, are they?
The drawings are as it's proposed to be built, but with the varying B2, B8 and EG use, each of those, I suppose, would maybe depend on the number of employees each of those units would have. So until that end user is identified, it's not clear.
Because facilities within the units seem to be pretty sparse.
They are just open units. I suppose it's giving the maximum potential for any end user to kind of make their mark on it.
Okay.
Comments or questions? Right, okay. Okay, so the recommendation is for this particular application to be passed, but can I ask the councillors for those that are for the application? Well, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. All right. Right, we go straight on to 6.2 of the agenda. TWC 2023-0058, the site of Ridgeways, Hem Lane, Halesfield, Telford. Can I ask Andrew to...
So this application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 31 dwellings with garages, landscaping and means of access. The application has been determined by members as a major development subject to a Section 106 agreement. The site is located on Hem Lane, a semi-rural location which is positioned between Halesfield and the boundary of the borough. The application site measures in excess of 3 hectares and there is 1 existing dwelling on the site which will be retained. The site is within the Telford urban boundary where the principle of development is acceptable. The site is well contained with mature boundary treatment and is currently utilised as a private amenity space for the existing dwelling. As such, there's no encroachment into open country side. The scheme proposes a mix of 3, 4 and 5 bed properties. The scale of the development is appropriate and the designs are of a high quality and would enhance the local area. All properties comply with the nationally described space standards with a policy over provision of Part M4(2) of the building regs. Garden sizes are in excess of the council's desired standards. It's noted that the site is within close proximity to the Halesfield industrial estate. As such, an acoustic report proposes that mitigation measures, such as adequate glazing within dwellings, would be sufficient to ensure that the properties wouldn't be adversely impacted by the neighbouring industrial estate. Given the site's semi-rural nature and location near the boundary of the urban area, discussions have taken place between the LPA and the developer in regards to the provision of affordable housing. It's been agreed that given the site's location and the predicted reliability on car, a financial contribution in this case for off-site affordable would be more appropriate. This is equivalent to the provision of 8 on-site dwellings, 2 of which would be first homes. On this basis, the Council's affordable housing team have suggested this approach and have requested a sum of £693,000. Furthermore, a highway contribution of £7,000 has been requested for a reduction in the speed limit and associated signage on Hem Lane. A contribution of £88,000 has been requested from the Council's education team towards secondary place provision, and a contribution of £40,000 has been requested for the enhancement / upgrade of off-site play and sports provision. There are no technical objections from the Council's highways, drainage, ecology, healthy spaces, education or affordable housing team. And in respect of parking, the proposal provides an over-provision of 17 spaces in comparison with the local plan standards. Finally, in respect of sustainability, the applicants have indicated that features such as the installation of solar panels, air/ground source heat pumps and electric vehicle charging points will be included, and these details will be secured by a condition on the consent. Accordingly, officer recommendation is for approval based on compliance with local and national policy. Thank you, Chair.
Again, we've got no speakers either for or against it, so can I open it up to the councillors, please? Right, Councillor Scott.
Here we are. I hope that other members have been along and seen this, because quite honestly, I think it's the wrong location for anything like this. Hem Lane itself is a single track. It comes out onto two rather fast roads as well. It seems to me, I mean, there's no bus service, there are no services of any description in the area. There's no real identified need for housing there, to be honest. It's isolated. It's totally in the wrong place. It's the first time, really, when I've looked at applications and I see a summary of public response that I actually agree with all of those pretty well. It is the wrong application in the wrong place. And I would be inclined to refuse this. However, if members haven't been down and looked at it, then we should. And I think then you'll see the problems that I personally have with it. I don't know who benefits from this actually, apart from the landowner who's selling it and maybe the people who are building it. It's of no benefit to the borough of Telford and Reekers as far as I can see. So I would say no. Thank you.
Councillor Scott. Anybody? Thank you, Steve. All right. Oh, sorry.
So similar, don't it? Right, thank you, Chair. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I mean, the site's already been approved for development, so it's a bit difficult to sort of to refuse it. But I mean, and I do have some questions. I'm glad about the landscape management plan, solar panels, EV charging points, heat pumps. Heat pumps, that's great. Good, very good. And I was a bit surprised that there was only secondary school contribution, because normally the education contribution is normally biased towards primary school, actually. So it's quite unusual just to see secondary school contribution. I wondered why there wasn't any primary school contribution requested. My biggest concern is on the lack of affordable housing, because it says lack of affordable housing, no affordable housing due to the location. Well, sort of being a bit of a veteran on this committee, we've previously passed and been asked to approve applications for affordable housing in some far more isolated locations than this, with even less facilities. So I'd be quite interested to know what the criteria was for that particular decision. I mean, as far as the design goes, it's fine. Sort of people, just coming back to affordable housing, people in affordable housing do have vehicles. So, I mean, just because there's a lack of public transport and as we've already heard, sort of the difficulties getting, sort of onto and off the site. I do think, sort of, I would question the thinking and the criteria that has led to that decision. I mean, as far as the application it goes, yeah, I've been down there and it is quite isolated, and certainly the people that live there are not going to have, it's not as if they can, anywhere that they need to go. They're going to have to go through an industrial estate. So, sort of, it'd be interesting to see whether or not this development is successful if it does go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Doug Moore. Councillor Lutler.
Thank you. Well, I think obviously there's been a lot of professional assessments done on this site, and the professionals that are involved in assessing this have decided that they don't seem to have any issue with this development going ahead. If it were to be passed, I would like to make sure and ensure that the financial provisions that they've said that they would be willing to put forward as part of this application are set in stone, because I'm sick and tired of seeing Section 106 money being agreed and then it come back to this committee and then it being whittled down and whittled down and whittled down. And I think especially with this particular development, with it perhaps being in a more secluded area, I think it's important that the money that they're looking at putting into to sort of external areas is quite important. When it comes down to it being sort of secluded, perhaps like bus services, I think that comes down to the individual people that will be looking at purchasing these properties and whether they think it's suitable for them to live in that area. That's down to them. So I think as long as the financial contributions are in place, the professional opinions from people that have put together this report for us don't see an issue with it, then I personally don't seem to have an issue with it.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions, but they're in line with what Councillor Scott has just said. The highways contribution is £7,000. Is anybody able to give me information as to how that is likely to be spent?
Yeah, answer now, Councillor Beckman. It's reducing the speed limit on Hem Lane and the associated signage.
Right. What speed limit are they reducing it to?
It's a 60 at the minute, so it's an sort of national speed limit, and it would reduce it to a 40.
Which I think is too fast for the lane anyhow. Coming off the A4169, which is the back road leading into Shifnal, Hem Lane is identified as being closed. Are we proposing therefore to make this one way, which it should be? Because there is no way of getting two vehicles coming up and down that lane at all. So it needs to be constrained to one way only. I think a weight restriction on that lane has to be imposed to not exceed 3.5 tonnes, which is no longer than a transit long wheelbase sort of vehicle, because you can't take heavy goods vehicles down there. The only field that needs access can come up the A4169, and that's immediately to your left. So any tractor vehicles getting onto that part do. I think the entrance to the site, which I assume is going to be to the gates to the left-hand side of Bridgeway as you're standing in front of it, needs to be widened. And then I'd like to know about a travel plan for children, because I assume that the nearest catchment school is Sturchley, which is within a 3-mile walking distance, therefore school transportation is not applicable. Any children from this site, and I you know, although it's not mentioned with the off-site play provision and anything else, I do assume we're going to have children on this site, are going to have to walk to that school. They've got to cross Halesfield 1, the following junction at Halesfield, and then somehow or another they've got to get across the Sturchley interchange. So what provisions or what discussions have been taking place, because I think £7,000 for a highways contribution doesn't work.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's echoing a few points that have already been raised with regards the highways contributions. I think anybody who's worked in Halesfield, and I have for a number of years, that Halesfield 1 coming off the EP is like a racetrack. And so the concern is they've only looked at Hem Lane as a highways contribution, but it'd be interesting to know if highways have looked at Halesfield 1 and the speed in which traffic does go down there with respect to the entrance, and indeed extending upon that the plans to get to schools and everything else, because it's a death trap. The one-way system I completely agree with. It'll have to be. The contraflow in that lane is nearly impossible, especially for modern vehicles. You're impossible if you're getting two Land Rovers past each other down there. But my main concern is the speed of Halesfield 1. I think highways need to have a look at that again and seriously consider whether some sort of traffic management, whether it's TRO speed limits, I don't know, chicanes, whatever it is, but that traffic needs to be slowed down dramatically before we can let people in and out of a housing estate on that road.
Given the committee's concerns regarding highways, would it be apt for us to defer this planning application and ask for highways to give us more information about some of the concerns that have been raised by the council, rather than make a decision at this stage?
I would much rather see a decision tonight and Highways bringing forward the plan for us to agree to.
Chair, I've got a few things to come back on. I've got a few more details in respect to the highways. It might not change your decision, members. I appreciate that. But in answer to the question, highways do look at. It was yourself and Councillor Janke. Highways do look at the visibility of the onward roads, if that makes sense. So they would look at Halesfield 1 as well. In terms of the conditions that highways have asked for, and I think this was your concern, Councillor Bentley, they've got the first one is visibility onto Hem Lane. We would require that to be the standard 2.4 metres by 43 metres, so that's one of the conditions. And then we've got the standard construction of roads and paths within the site, which isn't really too applicable. And then we've got a condition which is details of off-site highway works, and this includes point A is a footway link from Hem Lane site entrance to the junction of Halesfield 1, so that's along a footpath link down Hem Lane down to Halesfield 1. Road widening and traffic calming along Hem Lane. The third point is improvements to the junction of Hem Lane and Halesfield 1. So they're not included within the 7,000. So these are works that the developer have got to do. So we don't know what the cost of those is. A tactile crossing from Hem Lane and Halesfield 1 junction to the existing pedestrian facilities along Halesfield 1. So just repeat that. That was a tactile crossing from the Hem Lane, Halesfield 1 junction, the existing facilities along Halesfield 1, so I think that's the other side of the road. And then, excuse me, the last one is just any other associated engineering work. So there's 4 aspects there of works that the developer would do outside of the £7,000.
Is that only within Hem Lane, or is that including the interchange and the crossing facilities to get to the Sturtley School?
That is only up to Halesfield 1, so it doesn't go beyond that.
Well, with all due respect to highways and anybody else, from Hen Lane to getting to Halesfield 1, from this particular site is what, 100 yards? Short path to there, that's fine. Getting across Halesfield 1 with some sort of crossing, that can be achieved. My biggest concern is how do you get across Sturtley Interchange?
Yeah, I think we've also, I appreciate it's a separate plan application, but we've got the 300 dwelling scheme for the Hem, which was an allocated site in the local plan, and that secures contributions and off-site highway works to the school. So does that answer your question, Councillor Bentley?
Not really, because I still do not see how you get across safely without signalisation, and even that may not be safe. The Sturtley Interchange, which is probably one of the busiest along the Queensway roadway.
Chair, if I may come back into, in terms of the application that Andy referred to, which relates to an application members considered, and it was actually deferred and members reconsidered it and approved it a few years ago, which relates to the Sturtley Interchange. There is specifically works, and they're actually on site at this moment in time undertaking works to Sturtley Interchange in terms of that roundabout, and facilitating improvements around that to support sustainable development, sustainable footways across and crossings. But it is roundabout works and it is part of a separate application. So when we're considering these applications, you have to consider it on its own merits and also what's proportionate to the actual scale of development as well. Development works are coming forward through a separate application. That isn't hypothetical, it is on site, it is ongoing, and we need to consider this in terms of proportionality as to what's appropriate for this site.
I think in respect to this, because the rest of the application and what's proposed in it, I don't have a problem with. Maybe I'd support Councillor Luter's and defer this until I've seen some of that works around the Sturtley Interchange actually there. Because at this present moment in time, with all due respect to everybody, I cannot see how this is going to be facilitated. That interchange is very, very busy. It's very fast. extremely dangerous, and we're not just talking about secondary children here. Primary school children have got to get to the nearest primary school, which I believe is probably Brookside. There is one other aspect I think has to be considered, and that is surface water dispersal and sewerage here, having become somewhat a bit of an expert recently in where sewerage goes and doesn't go. But certainly surface water and the brook that runs down Hem Lane in heavy rainfall, and especially in the winter time, is subject to flooding.
Peter.
Thank you. Yeah. You mentioned £40,000 for an off-site play area. Has that been identified? And a big problem I have, more and more when we do applications, is there's £40,000 there. Now it says on the application, because we're talking about a minimum 60 odd people coming to this, possibly more, but a minimum 60 odd. And it says there, the impact on 31 new dwellings on local GPs, emergency and medical centres are taken into account. Now it's about time we started putting, or they even, you know, the health authorities started saying, we need to expand, not just put another off-site play area because it ticks a box. So I suppose the questions are really, first of all, which surgery would these people use? And it says they've been taken into account. Were the surgery involved in that? Did they ask for any money? And, you know, and also where would this tactile crossing is another one. Could you just run me through what you feel is a tactile crossing, please?
Some difficult questions there, Councillor Scott. So the GP surgery, I think Valerie's mentioned this before, that we meet with the Integrated Care Board as a more strategic approach to the local plan. So they look at how many houses the borough are looking to deliver over the next whatever period. They know where the majority of the houses will go because they're allocated, and then they plan their facilities accordingly. So I don't think there's been any. So I'm just looking. Would you direct me to the bit of the report, Councillor Scott, where it says about the doctors?
It's on 6213.
Thank you. So this is this under the pollution control?
So it's saying here that the impact of these dwellings on the surgeries is taken into account, but by who and how?
Yeah, sorry, thank you for the... Yeah, so these are the comments from the, well, we called it pollution control, but it's health and well-being. And it's like I said, what they mean is that the local plan allocates a certain amount of houses over the plan period, 17,000 over the last period, I think. And it's that the Integrated Care Board are involved in that allocation, not specifically on this application. They haven't been consulted specifically on this one. And I doubt that they would have any comment on smaller individual applications.
Shouldn't they be? Shouldn't the Integrated Care Board be involved now in all medium to large applications, because they're affected more than anyone else? There are more people who want to go to a surgery than want to go to a school, and yet we're prepared to give them a lot of money towards the schools, a lot of money towards off-site play areas, not even on-site, and yet there's 40,000 quid there which would improve a surgery. So which surgery would they go to?
I don't know the specific surgery, I'm afraid. I don't know if Val wants to comment on the wider engagement.
So, okay, I mean, we'll get nowhere here at this moment, but I think it's fair to say that surgeries are not being considered with applications. Whose fault it is, whose onus it's on, I'm not sure. But really, we need to get a grip of this because it's getting worse. If we just finally, though, if you could just run me through a tactile crossing, because what I think it might be and what it is are two different things.
Yeah, my understanding is that it's the difference in surface with the little dimples.
But is it a crossing as well?
No, I think they're just dropped.
Yeah, because we see these, they're a little dropped curve, they've got little dimples on,
yeah,
but there's nothing else there. And we're talking here, as Councillor Janker said, very busy road. It needs a crossing. It doesn't need a weak attempt at something called a tactile. I thought it was one of those. Yeah. Quite honestly, I hear what people are saying, even by deferring it. I think the whole application is hopeless. And if you're going to defer it, by all means defer it. But if you're going to defer it, those who haven't been to a site visit must. Because I think some of you will come round to my way of thinking if you haven't been. Thank you. And it's a no from me. Thank you.
I just wanted to go back in terms of the ICB. We meet with them on a quarterly basis and go through in terms of what any issues that we've got. But then in terms of there is no direct desire for them in terms of...
It's weird.
But it's the ICB who need to make the comments.
Yeah,
it's the ICB that need to also show the evidence in terms of them.
Well, I spoke with them last year now, and they said when it came to coming to an application and using 106 monies, they didn't even know they could do it. You know, and that was their words, not mine.
I would suggest that's perhaps the person you're speaking to. We know that we're speaking to the appropriate persons that deals with the in terms of their estates and their criteria and what they need, and they're looking at in terms of both applications that are coming forward as well as then the local plan allocation.
I hate to use our word social media, but if you look at social media, and there's been there's been a report about further housing in the area, as we've all seen in the last few days. People go onto social media and the first thing they'll say is, what about doctor surgeries? And it's about time doctor surgeries said, what about us? It's a serious problem, and if they aren't engaging with you, quite honestly, you should grab them by the scruff of the neck and say engage, because this is a serious problem for the borough and the country, and it's been ignored for the sake of off-site play areas we don't actually need.
I think in terms of, there's two matters here. What we're talking about is strategic, and it isn't part of the determination of this application, which is where we need to focus tonight. And in terms of picking up with the ICB, I will go back through again what we've gone through previously in terms of and who the liaison is outside of this.
Okay. Oh, well, all right, thank you.
Right. Any more comments? No? Okay. So if there's no more from either side. Okay, we'll go put a vote on the this particular application, or is there a suggestion that it be deferred?
You need to consider the recommendation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. So the recommendation is to, based on the recommendation is that delegated authority be granted to the service delivery manager to grant full planning permission with all the provisions associated with it. So can I put that to...
We don't give respect council to move for a deferral.
Well, no, I made a suggestion that if the committee as a whole...
Oh, you changed your mind?
Yeah. No, I didn't.
All right.
I didn't make a proposal. I made a suggestion that if the committee wasn't happy with the highways arrangement, because I thought we were going around in circles discussing the issue of highways, I've assessed the information that I've had here and the proposals that are put forward and the assessments have made by the professional bodies under the planning parameters. But it's up to the rest of the committee if they wish to make a proposal on that basis. But I felt we were going around in circles as a committee discussing the specific highways issues, and I felt that if that was going to ultimately come to a point where we couldn't make a decision, or people didn't want to make a decision, then my suggestion was, if somebody wished to, then they could ask for it to be deferred. That wasn't my position, but I just felt we were going around in circles.
Chair, can I ask for a bit of advice? Vote on the recommendation. Do we have to do that first, or can someone put a proposal forward to defer this application once we've had our answers from highways and specific issues that have been raised this evening? Is that before or after the recommendation we're going to vote?
Put a recommendation, but you did put forward a motion to defer the meeting.
Okay.
You don't need to vote on a recommendation if you defer.
Okay. Well, could I put forward a motion to defer this application?
Okay.
So we have further points of clarification from highways.
Graham seconded. Is everyone in agreement to defer this particular application until we get some answers back from highways and...
No, I didn't even get on with it. Probably just me.
Okay, so well, it looks as if there's anybody against that particular... Yeah, so Peter and... Okay. So 6-2. So
Some clarity on what it is you're deferring forward. It's information on highways, is that?
is that the initial?
Would you like a site visit?
Yes.
I, I think a site.
Could I have an answer to my question about the criteria for affordable housing as well, please?
Yeah, of course. Councillor Dugmore. So policy HO6 of the local plan is the one that mentions about the delivery of affordable housing. HO5 before it says about securing 25% in Telford or 35% in Newport. And in the, I appreciate I haven't got a copy of the local plan, but in the fourth paragraph, which is the last one, it says any contribution both on-site and off-site will be secured through a planning obligation. Where off-site or financial contributions are agreed, the contribution should broadly reflect the equivalent benefit to the local housing need where this is to be provided on site. So our local plan team, and on their comments online, they've set out how they've calculated the 693,000, how that's equivalent to the provision of 8 on site.
I'm not really querying the actual amount. It's the reasons why this site is not deemed suitable for any affordable housing, whereby we have on other applications it has been recommended for affordable housing in locations that are more isolated than this and have fewer facilities. I mean, it doesn't have much facilities as it is, but even less facilities we've seen in the past. And I'd just be interested to know what the affordable housing team, why it's not suitable on this site, but it has been in what would seemingly be less desirable locations.
Yeah, it's an approach that the council have taken to secure off-site contributions. I appreciate members probably haven't seen many, if any, but the uses are quite equally as beneficial, because what we've spent pots of money on is stalled sites. So we've facilitated the completion of some developments through supporting registered providers. So it's not a definite no. There will be other applications where we might have a mix, for example. So we might ask for a provision of 20% on site, or 15 or 10 or even none, like this one, in lieu of an off-site contribution, because both pots are useful. The pot of money is useful to help stalled sites, and then the on-site provision is it obviously delivers affordable housing through that development itself. So they're equal in a way. There's no particular. Well, I think the location of this site doesn't really lend itself to affordable housing, and perhaps that's a new approach that we've sort of recognised. You know, noting that we've asked for it on less sustainable sites in the past.
I know all about, you know, sort of having off-site affordable provision and everything. I'm just interested in the way that this has been designated as unsuitable for on-site affordable housing, whereas less desirable locations have been assessed as being suitable for. So doesn't seem consistent with me. That's the thing.
Yeah, just to say, if we are having a site visit, and we really should, we'll need access into Ridgeways, because otherwise we're all parking at least half a mile away. Because there's nowhere to park along there. And imagine us lot all turning up in our cars down Hem Lane, you'd see exactly why it's totally unsuitable.
Ironically.
There you go. So if it's a site visit, we need to get into either the land, well, I doubt it, big dirty great fence, or into Ridgeways, because otherwise you won't be able to do it. But we should, because if you haven't been, you'll change your mind, believe me.
The recommendation is to defer this particular application until we have a site visit. If everyone's in agreement to that, that's where we'll go.
I'm sort of in agreement, Chair, and not being too awkward here, but I would certainly like to see something coming forward from Highways, an explanation.
Yeah.
Because whichever person thought £7,000, I'll just pay more than that for solar panels, would actually address some of the issues we've talked about tonight. I just can't believe it.
We don't have to concern ourselves too much with the off-site requirements, because that's the developer's prerogative. We tell them what's needed, and then they work out whether they want to commit to that. So I can reassure you that the works that they'll be doing are well in excess of £7,000. The £7,000 is just for the traffic regulation order, which the developer can't do because we as a council have to do it. So most of that will be legal fees, and then there'll be a small proportion of that will be on the signage, you know, the installation of or the change in the signage.
That's the other aspect of this that interests me, the traffic regulation order. Because I think it was done under Shropshire County Council when they were the Highways Authority, and we weren't actually independent of it. I am positive there is already a traffic regulation order on that road that prevents you entering it off the A4169. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the sign down the bottom there.
Both ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but we can...
And as for the speed limit, I'm pretty certain that was reduced when a lady got crushed by an articulated lorry travelling down there. That's many, many years ago.
Yes.
Sorry, can I consider what's appropriate for the application question today? But yeah, I think it's been deferred.
Okay, defer. Yeah.
I was just to say, with respect, we've deferred this planning application now, and we'll be discussing it at a future date, so I don't think there's any point in discussing it any further.
Yeah, okay. So we'll defer this one until next month, and we can arrange to...
A site visit.
Site visit.
Do you want to arrange the time now, or do you want to arrange that through Democratic Services?
Arrange. Happy to arrange it through Democratic Services, and then we go...
we had a highways officer here to explain certain things. Yeah, that might be useful.
Considering Peter's idea that there's going to be a lot of cars down there, is there any way we can have a van or something, or just one vehicle to go down there on block? I don't know.
We'll access the site, and then there'll be parking within the site.
Okay, all right.
We can hire one of the chase riders if they can keep them running.
All right. Okay, thank you. All right, so it's going to be deferred, and thank you for attending tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.